All right, all right, all right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Amelia. That was a nice introduction. Appreciate it. My name is Franck Gbaguidi. I work with Eurasia Group. Eurasia Group is a political risk research and advisory firm. I lead their work on sustainability, so all things sustainability, from climate to biodiversity to water to environmental litigation. I'm super duper excited to be here today. It's a very important session. We're going to talk about textile waste and the global circular economy. So many buzzwords here: waste, circular economy, lots of definitions to unpack, and that's kind of like what we're going to aim to do today. Global conversation means a global panel, so I'm thrilled to be joined today by these fantastic three lovely people, starting with Pernille Weiss, member of the EU Parliament and part of the group of the European People's Party. Also joined by Sammy Oteng, who is a senior community engagement manager with the OR Foundation. The OR Foundation is a public charity with activities in the US and in Ghana, very much so working to, I would say, identify alternatives to the dominant model of fashion, right? And how do you think through those alternatives, working at the intersection between environmental justice and fashion development? Great to have you here. Also great to have Abena Essoun joining us, also from the OR Foundation, and formerly working at the Contamento market. For those of you who may not be aware of it, this is the largest second-hand market in West Africa. Which basically pretty much means one of the largest in the world, if you know the region quite well. So great to have you all here today. The topic of the whole summit is ambition to action, so I want to be very ambitious with what we're going to try to cover in the next 40-ish minutes. I want to do three things. Number one, I want us to fully understand circularity in the context of the second-hand market. That's one. Number two, I want us to have an honest conversation about the unequal distribution of material exchange between regions. And then, ambition to action, the third point, would be great if we could touch on policies, policy tools, policy solutions for a fair, for an equitable circular economy. So that's basically the agenda for today. To get things started, we're going to have Sammy, who's going to give us a short presentation, and then we'll have a discussion afterwards.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Okay, so I'll call on everyone here to just close your eyes. Just a brief moment. Close your eyes. Now, just imagine you're at your favorite beach. You're walking in the sand. It's warm. You feel the water on your feet. You feel the breeze. Maybe it's close by, so you go there very often. Maybe you only go there in the summer, you only go there on vacation. Now I want you to open your eyes. What would you do if this was your favorite beach? Now, this is the reality of where I come from, Accra, Ghana. This is a beach in Accra, Ghana. And all you can see is textile waste and barely any beach. Now, this is Contamento, the largest reuse and upcycling economy in the world. Contamento, with its very little resources, is able to recirculate and upcycle up to 25 million garments in a month. In a space of around 30,000 people working together as a community, there are dyers, there are pressers, there are tailors, designers, all working together to upcycle clothing that comes from the global north to the global south. But with all its efforts, Contamento is unable to recirculate all of these garments. And hence, we see all of those wastes. But Contamento, with its work, is now forced to follow the track of fast fashion to move fast, because there's just too many clothing being produced in the world and too many coming into my country. And since fast fashion is fast and cheap, it's only cheap, and it's only a cheap commodity because it relies on cheap labor. And it's the same that replicates what is in Contamento. So in the image on the right, we see a lady carrying, and this lady is in our local dialects, we call them kayaye. And that means the woman who carries. And these people have to literally carry the burden of fast fashion because the market is built in such a way that it needs to rely on cheap labor to keep it moving, just like fast fashion. Now, the image on the left is an image of the bone. And we did a research on 100 sample girls, and we found out that within 2 months of carrying a 55 kg bill through the consumer market, these ladies degenerate their necks, and then they are unable to live healthy lives. Some of them, there have been instances where some of them have snapped their necks and died under this weight. There have been instances where, from these images, you can see a baby on the back of the lady, where the bills have fallen on their babies and they've died instantly. With all of this, that's why as an organization at the All Foundation, we are working together with the Kantamanto community to work on solutions in finding pathways for this textile waste that come into our country from the global north. And whilst doing this, also finding pathways for the Kaya girls who have been working and carrying this weight to also find other channels to make their lives better. Now, on the right, we see an image of a design. Now, this is a market. I feel like I'm blocking some of your views. This is a market in Kantamanto. And in the past 3 years, there have been 2 fires that have ultimately gutted out several sections in the market. But through our collaboration with the market, we are able to redesign and then build a new market. And this will not only give dignity to the work they're doing in the market, but also give pathways so these women called Kayaye will not carry anymore. Because if there are larger pathways or our ways, they're able to use things like carts or wheelbarrows to move things and not depend on carrying the things anymore. And through this is why we call for globally accountable EPR. And then we launched our Stop Waste Colonialism campaign. And for us, it's either you are against you're against colonialism, or you are for colonialism within the textile waste industry. So what we are calling for is internalized cost of waste management. And this means that all costs around EPR must be eco-modulated, such that they follow the same way of the reverse supply chain. So if you're going to send things out there, that means money must follow it. And we know the starting point should be at least at 50 cents because there's so much that people in Kantamanto have to do. And this will be enough to pay people in the global north and also the global south to do the work that they do. The second thing that we are calling for is global accountability and closing the gap. So if we look at these 2 circles, you can barely see the dot that represents Ghana. That's the amount of resources my country has to do the work that it's been doing for all these years. And that is representative of the amount of resources a country like France has, and yet making all the choices that we have to bear the cost. Number 3 is volume reduction and disclosures. Now, it will make no sense for us to be talking about this and then moving towards circularity without asking brands to lower the production volumes. There's a saying in my native language, we don't stand in fire ants and get rid of fire ants. So how are we going to push towards a net zero fashion industry without making sure that brands are reducing the production volume? The truth is, if we stop production right now, everybody will still have clothes to wear. So why aren't we doing this? So as we go on, you can check out on our campaign, which is the stopwastecolonialism.org, and read more about it, but also take action. Because as I said, you are either for it or against it. Thank you.
Thanks, Sammy. We promised you a global conversation, so this is what you're getting today. So from Ghana all the way up to Europe, we're going to get the conversation going. Pernille, Weiss, I would love to get your thoughts on what has been presented and kind of also linking it to the EU conversation. I feel like from most of the sessions that I've heard this morning, people kept mentioning how the EU is a pioneer in the policy landscape when it comes to the fashion industry. I know that you have been personally quite involved in the EU Waste Shipment Directive, the revision of it, which will go into effect probably next year. In what way could that be a game changer, and if so, why?
Yes, and thank you for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be here also to represent this Brussels bubble who has a lot of ambitions, not only on our own behalf, and that is also what we should have since we have a very big economy and market, and the way we behave in our consumerism is also having a huge impact on the rest of the globe. So it's very, very much needed that we have high ambitions in Brussels. And we do. I work, you said the Waste Shipment Directive, it's a regulation, which is good because then it's the same law that applies in every EU country on how to treat waste when we transport it. But also how we, between EU countries and the rest of the world, transport our waste. And we know we have a very, very big impact negatively right now on social and environmental issues that also spill over to the economic issues. And that we do take very serious. We are now recasting the waste shipment regulation. It's a very old and very linear piece of legislation. Now we make it circular to support circular economy. And we do that also in the way where we now will, hopefully, it's in trialogue right now, so hopefully we can agree with the Council, so with the member states in EU, that it will never ever in the future, when this law enters into force, be possible in a legal way to send waste to the beaches anywhere outside of OECD. So we will put that into mechanism that countries has to apply to come on a list that they are able to actually treat waste in an environmentally sound way. That's one of the things we do, and that's really, really an important and very also hopefully powerful tool. Also, we will digitalize the waste transport, so we get data to work with us also that we can enforce and have an impact on the waste crime that is unfortunately happening without any kind of legal tools to come after the ones that are doing the crimes. Also, we are doing this trick, hopefully, that will make it circular economy work much, much better in the future, that we will ban the export of waste with plastic from the EU to outside of EU in the EU and will not be, and the EFTA countries. Yes. So. And that will not only mean that we will not just send our plastic waste to third countries outside of the EU and EFTA, but also that we can create on the EU market the foundation for the technologies that can work with plastic in ways that are truly sustainable, both social, economically, and in terms of the environment. And then that's the waste shipment regulation. We also work with the Eco Design Directive now, also so that goods that are produced in Europe gets much more in line with sustainability and true sustainability. Also the CSDDD, so the due diligence, because we also need more data and compliance to be entered into force. So we try in the bubble to use the toolboxes that we have, but also to make them fit more to the purpose, so that we also can end this greenwashing of people like me, like politicians and others who are full of good intentions, but actually do not address, okay, how do we do it? How do we walk the talk? But also, how can we take it serious? And now, finally, the textile industry somehow has found each other, so that we as legislators in Europe have someone to talk to about, okay, you also want to go green, you also want to be more truly sustainable. How can we provide the tools needed, not only in legislation that makes things legal or non-legal, but also that we provide innovation and research in a transition pathway from now and into the future, because we can't change this here in a week. We all know that, and also we have to do it in a way where we not only turn our back to the rest of the world in the EU, but actually that we co-create in what is really in the textile sector an international global industry with both a fast fashion industry that overproduces about 30%. I mean, you don't have any industry elsewhere in the world that makes such a huge overproduction to the market, and we accept it. That has to stop. Really, that has to stop.
So, Pernille, you mentioned the waste shipment directive. Sammy mentioned the Stop Waste Colonialism campaign. So we've been using the term waste quite a lot.
Yep.
I find that sometimes the definition behind it can be
indeed.
quite challenging.
Yeah, indeed. And that's actually what we put into the waste shipment regulation, and ask for a clearer definition. We know that the definition actually is a part of the waste management directive. And that piece of legislation or directive is going to be recasted soon. We hope in July that we will get the Commission's proposal. And exactly in that directive we can address, okay, can we be a little bit more specific and clear about what is used goods and what is waste? Because a lot of waste is actually being shipped to third countries as used goods. And actually that is maybe still more or less waste. But also that part of the equation we need to have a closer look into, because we also have this tendency to see waste as waste, where waste is actually a resource. So we need the definition to become more precise, but maybe also a little bit more agile in the way that innovation and research makes it possible for us to change from treating something as waste we just burn or send off, that it is actually something that can still be a part of the circular and the more innovative circular growing economy. So look out for the proposal when it comes in July. It's a great thing to read in the summer break. But then we need, and then I really hope that to see some input coming from your stakeholders who has something to say and contribute to in order to make us also in a legislative way better to articulate a precise definition of what is waste and what is not waste but is a part of circular economy. We really need that to be clear. Otherwise it will only be the lawyers who will get rich from this year, and we will still end up seeing bad examples of enforcement that actually doesn't work.
I want to turn the same question to Sammy and Abena, because what I find within my job, we have this initiative called the Sustainable Leadership Council, and so it's mostly focused on Asia. And the conversation around not just waste, but even any other big buzzwords in the sustainability realm, I find that it's context-based, it's culture-based, it's country-based, sometimes it's even market-based. What is your take on waste, more specifically?
Okay. I work in Kantamanto for 9 years. I started at Kantamanto. Na yaya nyamano bill no yakokoto in bill. Yanto na baako te said ya ahanam no moye no. Bill no ukoto a wonim de awum. Na ade o ma chechire ho mo de rubber chechire ho. Wo colors no and item na wo kwa akoto. Nanso wonim de awum watu aka. Bill no ye ne bo no ye from 3,000 to 10,000. Na what is ka de tuaka. Wonim de awum. Nti ukoto e de ba na wetwa ansa na wehu de awum. Ti ya yanto ne baako te said wakọ esen ho na wakọ yi ubisa bo na wato de awo pe ukọ na wato bill na wetu aka na de abeto na wetwa ansa na wehu de awum. Na niam no so no se wutwa bill no na wentimi anto ne that very day na ne nyina be ye waste e de ma e bola e de ma e bola nso so aye woka. Nti me fan se makoto bill ne de aba beto wo no musi. Okay.
So I'll translate a bit. So Abena just mentioned she has been working in the market for over 9 years, and it was her big sister that introduced her. So she's had a sister ahead of her that introduced her business. But as retailers, they do not buy singular items. They buy it in bills, and they have no idea what is in the bill. That is what is being shipped from the global north to the global south. So as a retailer, she invests all the money she has into buying the bill, and then has to go through the sorting. So we've heard so many times that, there is a lot of sorting that happens here before the clothing are shipped into the global south. But here's the case, the clothing are sold in commodity, and then fashion is very conceptual. I may like this shoe, you may not like it, so if you don't buy it in the shop, it's something that sits there. And the longer it sits, it becomes waste. Kantamanto do not have those resources. So through Kantamanto, the clothing come as bills, and they have to sort it and then be able to sell the individual garments to their clients.
I was a wusha, now sort to send your mom can to say, or my sort in a dada. About was I was sort to send a bay out bit me at home.
Yeah. So no matter what sorting process happens in the wherever these clothing are coming from, it still has to be sorted in Kantamanto before they can sell it.
When they first selection, a beam, was a wujina so. Now with me tone and young sika with the akoto beno. First selection is when Dawson. Ebina may wear me nupe, or call be no more and Dawson. A kit to wear been a womb, and no sooner was a witty me a genus with me tongue. And near man, way say no, bet me a near fe, cacra, bet me I shed their call face, bet me I shed at their qua sorry, bet me I shed at their baby, and on the first selection.
So the first selection is the premium goods where they can sell at the premium price and get the most money from. And then it's usually very, very minimal in the bills. So from this selection, it was just this two from the premium, and then this is the second selection.
When the second selection, when the near cacrabet me ashen fee and near the and also endorse. And also now was say, and Kawudika first and when I would see me tongue. That's why I send her no be a matua, a dear chin, a year waste into Swayaka at the amount.
So I'm then saying no matter what selections you have, if nobody buys them, to her, it has become her waste.
And I wait to see a third selection when we're near. A bill on my near market came, a bit one my materials and be I waste. A friend is a week. And no, no, sano, Yatoma upcyclers, no. Upcyclers is almost a money upcycling facility be a Ghana. And Nuntino, a banasa, a waste at their mammy.
Yeah. So the third selection, they usually reserve it, and then since the community, the upcyclers work very closely with the retailers, and then the retailers give their third selection to the upcyclers, so they need a little bit of work. But all the work that needs to be done on this, Kantamanto do not have the resources, and it costs money to upcycle any garment, and sometimes even more before, like more than putting together a fresh garment.
And I went to so and we stains woman a white, but a change color sin as we see a ye. Where to material no I weak. But Miss Nibia to attitude. And I wish our material nankasa a fady. It's we are share any ye into we say a waste. A baller.
And this is the last selection. And then this is stuff that people usually not buy and will end up ultimately as waste, leave the market as waste. And this is also because Ghanaian people are very discerning when it comes to fashion. Everybody in Ghana knows how to take their measurement. Everybody in Ghana has someone in their family who knows something about tailoring or dressmaking. So if you send, quote unquote, a shitty garment to a Ghanaian, they would know and they won't buy it.
And I see no subini.
So this is the last. I'll just take opportunity to share this amongst you all. You can pass it.
Sammy Pacho, me church, yeah. Where's the Asian be? Asiano be on my way, Muntiminton. And I say, a Yasiano, so a debia, Wobana will keep our store. Ye me many storeroom, I may decide the way El Quaco. And to ye keep a container, na every day be as ye tiaka. And to no be on my way, said Mintiminton, I mean to Miss keep, and to match well form.
Yeah. And if they have to keep the garments, they have to pay for storage by the day. So the longer they keep the garments, the more they have to pay on stuff they're not even making money. So ultimately it becomes waste, and this is what runs into the beaches. Yeah. So you can see.
Sugua e koko wie ponemu. Me tugua mitua presika. Me emfa me ho baby a onipa opra ho no de kwa akogu. Say akogu yimfa, say akogu yimfa. But where you call beaches no, na akogu.
It's very disgusting, but this is our reality.
I'm going to relay. I think
in African tamanto. Waste nibi. When in African tamanto. What shy near Massinibi and akogu beaches and ye seaside.
So for Abena, everything that comes on our side is waste until someone buys it.
Yeah, but then it's very good that actually in EU now, the latest deadline for sorting textiles is 2025. And in Denmark, it's happening in now that we are actually sorting all our textiles. And I went last week to see a young lady who has now made a technology and has a growing business in how to sort textile so that, and she can actually sort out of the amount of textile waste that she gets from the Danish municipalities. She can sort into to circularity over 50% of all the so-called waste textiles that she gets. And that is a huge, huge innovation in comparison to the fact that in EU, we only reuse 1% of all textiles that are produced. So now we begin to have the technologies so that if ever we send out textiles from the EU in the future, it will not be as waste, it will actually be as a good that can go into to circular economy, so that it's not on the beaches, and from there you have to sort it and deal with that. That will even also be illegal, so we both have the technologies and we will have a legal framework to combat that kind of criminal act.
So just as the clothes are being kind of like passed along in the room, I just want to relay Amelia's point. She was saying, what are the brands? So just quietly look at some of the brands that are on top if they're still on. But I think it's a great example of basically the waste definition from a policy perspective, from a practical perspective, and then from a technology perspective, as you mentioned at the very end. Now, the problem is very clearly identified. If we try to look at some of the solutions, earlier today, the commissioner was saying that the EU needs to stop exporting its waste problem, needs to stop exporting its waste challenges abroad. What does that look like practically? Basically, what can we expect in a perfect world? What would you have in terms of EPR policies that would be much more closer to some of the goals that you have? I guess I can start with you, Pernille, and then I'll go to...
It is definitely something that we will see more of in the future, and hopefully in the near future, because we see now proposals coming for how we could actually have that is a part of our trade deals, but also as a part of the way that we have still an open economy globally. But also because we need to look at both supply and value chains, that in order to really have an impact as promised, we also need to put out the tools and the finances and the economic mechanisms that actually can make that grow. Not only in the practical way of the supply chain, but also to create these upskilling environments that creates new markets for innovation, both inside and especially also in collaboration with outside of Europe. I'm a member of the delegation of the ACP-EU countries, and that is some of the topics that we are discussing right now. There's a plenary going on, right? I'm sitting here, and I'm go back tomorrow and vote on these issues here. And it's wonderful to actually also to feel this common shared will to get into the practical mode of, yes, now we have talked for years about what we want to do, what good intentions we have. Now we have to make it work. And also in a way where we build it up in a realistic way, because we have also the challenge that there are some life standards that are unequal in the globe. So we are on different stages, and one part of the world cannot just go on the highway and not look back. And we have to find out ways on how we can move all of us together and learn from each other, because sometimes we also, as Europeans, think that we are the leading position of everything in the globe, and we are absolutely not. So also to include in the EPR schemes innovation that actually can grow elsewhere, and then only in the perception of Europeans, that we can actually also learn something from others than ourselves. So yes, definitely bring it on, and then we can put it into hopefully directives and the relevant regulations.
I appreciate the last point on learning from each other, which is why we're having this global conversation and not a conversation in silo, which I find is oftentimes the case in this topic. Sammy, your take on EPR. By the way, are we all on the same page for EPR, extended producer responsibility, right? We all Okay. Actually, I'm sure some people don't know. So basically, how can I define it? It's a policy tool, right, that basically makes the producer responsible for the full life cycle of the product that they put on the market, that they introduce in the market, right? Any thoughts on how we can have a perfect EPR system?
Yeah, thank you very much, Frank. For all of you who do not know about EPR, you can go to the website, stopwastecolonialism.org. We have a whole fact sheet that you can read all you want about EPR. If you have any questions, you can personally email me, and I'll have responses for you. But speaking on EPR in the future, I think I'll speak more on the challenges before I speak to the opportunities. And then one thing that has been the biggest challenge is that a lot of people are in denial. A lot of people are talking. I was very happy when I read on the theme for this year's GFA, which is ambition into action. 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 That is what we are looking for. We've been talking about this for a very, very, very long time. It's about time that all the ambitions and everything, we have to move them into action. So many of us are in denial. And the thing is, it is the reality of where I come from. And it's everywhere. It's all over the news. You can't deny it anymore. So why are we not taking action? Why are we talking? We here, all of you here, or some of us here, may have the privilege to actually, think about it and talk about it.
Well,
but where I come from, people are dying.
Yeah.
People are dying. Economies are being crashed. Yeah. Industries are being crashed. Before I came into advocacy work, I studied and trained as a fashion designer. But in Ghana now, because of what is happening in the influx of fast fashion, the local textile industry is almost dead. So I think this is not the time for us to debate this anymore. We do not have time to debate. This is the time we take action. And action is what we are looking for. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, I agree very much. And in action, it is also about, okay, let's start where we can actually see results here and now, and then build upon these like snowball effects. Because what I'm also sick and tired of in European politics often is that we describe this Rolls Royce of everything like a silver bullet that has to be in place before we do. I'm much more practical. I started out as a nurse, so okay, let's start with what we can do right now and then grow from there. Also because we don't have the possibility to look into the crystal ball and foresee whatever is going to happen in your country, in your neighbor countries, in EU for the next 10 years. Let's grow a little bit more incremental in what we already know we can do. So yeah, that's also what action is about, is what change can you do tomorrow?
And please
but
go ahead.
I want to talk about challenges. Talking about opportunities, one thing that we can look at, or one opportunity, is brands as we wait for legislatures and then policymakers to discuss, and debate all of these things. One thing or one opportunity that can happen right now is for brands to take an initiative and then start voluntary EPRs. Because if you're going to wait for legislatures and then the EU Parliament and all of the people involved, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years to make this happen, that means 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, my country still have to face what you saw up there. So brands need to step up. I'm pretty sure the clothing are still going around. You can keep them and show them to your friends and family, but the brands that you see on them, these brands need to step up and initiate voluntary EPR while we wait for legislators to make their decisions.
I hope definitely that we will make some kind of co-creation, because we don't have to open yet another field for greenwashing, sorry to say. So I want to make sure that the voluntary EPRs are actually something that makes a change, and it's not only just a new way to continue fast fashion. That criteria, as a conservative, I would like to address that we need to be very careful on that. So let's co-create. I mean, action and then law, and then mold it together.
I have tons of questions myself, but I don't want to be selfish, so I want to make sure. I want to make sure that you get to ask some of your questions. So over to you, Amelia.
I can only second to what's being said so far. I also have a lot of questions, but let's start by opening up to the floor, and if there's time, maybe both you and I can sneak one in. Okay, great. We've got first question right here. We're going to get you a microphone so that everyone in the room can hear you. Thank you so much. Go right ahead.
I'm so sorry, I just wanted to say how appreciative I am of this moment, and I think this should have deserved a main stage. Like, look at the crowd that's here. Look, I mean... And this is actually not a question. I just wanted to say how, touched I am and how, I can feel action brewing inside of me. I'm from Poland, secondhand clothing. I know I've been in sorting houses where clothes are being sent to Ghana. I've seen those shipments, and I would love for us to work further on that. So thank you.
Thank you. Another question here. Yes, right there. Go ahead, Sandra.
Thank you. I kind of have a question on the conversation about banning textile waste. And personally, I think I immediately have a knee-jerk reaction to it.
It's not textile, it's plastic waste.
It's plastic waste. Plastic waste?
It's plastic. We are arguing that we should have a ban on exporting of plastic waste out of EU and EFTA. So that's not the textile.
Not textile. Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. And I guess the other question, that was my first one, but I guess the other one was really linked to when we are looking forward at the EPR laws coming at, what about the textile waste that's already there? I think in terms of the technology that needs to be established in these countries, the damage is already done. What laws can actually go to assist the damage that's already there? Looking forward is great, but the damage is there.
Exactly.
So, very curious.
And that is where I have to be a little fluffy in my reply, because as I remember, no, I don't want to say something that is not true, but as I remember the last COP, there was a global agreement now to have a fund, a climate fund for the third countries who's now in the middle of the damages done, so that we can actually fund the repairments that needs to be made. And hopefully there is not this segregation between what is climate and what is environment. So it could be that there is a solution there, but please send me an email and I will find out exactly how we now have the framework to do something, or then at least we can address if we can't, what we can do in the future. I mean, we also as legislators need to have some kind of legal basis before we say to someone, you need to do something more or something else than you already do. But good question.
Pernille, I have a follow-up to that, because what's the distinction between plastic waste and textiles including plastic?
Yeah, that's also a very, very good question.
So obviously there's still a lot of
and that is why
discussion.
We are now really looking forward to see how the sorting of textile waste is taking out the fraction of clothes with plastic. Because then we know where it is and we know what to do about it, but also we know how to provide, hopefully, the needed technology innovation that we know how to then filter it up again and take the plastic where it should be and the rest of what is there. Also to look into the bioplastic solutions as actually a good alternative, so that we more and more have the plastic that comes from oil, to be in more safer loopholes than in textiles that we don't know where ends up in the circular economy. Yeah.
Thank you both. Yes, lots of questions. I think we've got you first. Yep, right there next to the camera. Thank you again. Up, yep, right there in the brown shirt. Yep.
Hi, thank you so much, and thank you to all the speakers for speaking today. I'm from Ghana, so this is very close to home, and I follow a lot of the work with the Your Foundation. So we focused a lot on the challenges that you have in the market, but I also want to focus on some of the more positive sides, because we do see a lot of innovation, and there's a lot of innovation that we've seen in the conference, and one of the realities that I'd like to see in the future is some of those solutions coming from the global south, like Ghana. So my question to you is whether you could talk about some of the innovation that we're seeing the local garment workers doing with the waste that comes there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm very happy. We have Koku here. Koku, please. So Koku is from Kantamanto. He's an upcycler, and as I was talking about, with very limited resources, Koku himself and his single apprentice is able to recirculate and upcycle 100 garments in one day. And then Kweku's shop, where he works from, is no bigger from where myself and Abena are sitting. But yet, Kweku is able to do this work. There's also Fafa here, who's an upcycler. Who's an upcycler, and her work is really bridging the gap, because the truth is, you know, all of these big words that we're using, circularity, upcycling, all of these things, this thing has existed where I come from for a very long time as a culture and as a lifestyle. The big words that we are talking about right now is very recent. People from where I come from have been, you know, working so hard with a lot of sentiment for clothing and how to make it last longer. So people do this from a point of culture and a point of lifestyle. But now they're doing it because fast fashion is pushing them to that pace as well. So all of these people here are finding innovative ways to do work that, you know, otherwise nobody else would do. And then talking about, we also have Mawuli. There's so many people here that I could introduce because we also think representation really matters. But talking about the work that is happening in Kantamanto, we also have, we are working closely with the community to create things like fiber boards, where we collect textile waste, which have ultimately ended up in the waste stream or beaches like the ones you guys saw, and then shred them and then transform them into materials that can feed other industries as well. And then the way that we are doing this work is such that everything is produced locally. So the machinery, the mechanism, and everything that works, put this or shred these materials are all made in Ghana and used, made from reclaimed metals. So at the end of the day, even if within the community they want to start businesses from this innovation, they don't have to rely on importation of machinery or technology expertise from elsewhere. They can depend on themselves, as they've been doing for a very, very long time. So these are all the amazing work that is being happening in Kantamanto. I can share more later on.
Perfect.
Thank you. Yes, I think perhaps you in the blue, and then we'll take you as the last question. Thank you.
Hi. I think Cynthia demonstrated on the audience the extent of the problem, and I'm actually curious where the clothes ended up. And I'm actually curious as to what she thinks the ideal solution would be.
Okay, we share a solution. You hear solution na Kantamanto. Esan se Kantamanto. E man omo ye adwuma. Omo de omo ahoden, omo sika. Omo take up the risk to do the job. Our Kantamanto honomo. Enti no solution ne say ye de any solution bia na ye ni obi a ye beka ya samatre no. Enti ye de enwa ne say ye bodewuro no. Ye guso a ye bodewuro no. Na ye tie yehu solution no. Solution is said ye hia moa wa Kantamanto. Ye dwem ho no mu nyina asai. Ensuo to a obi ntumi mbre mu metade. Ena oba ho Kantamanto ho so a emma no bebre e single parents. Bebre nso so ye kunafo. Omo ni sika omo de ye adwuma. Meja ye adwuma ya mebewura o foundation mu no. Se me kɔ hɔ no na metie nkomodidie mu ene nkrofo nsɛm omo kaka. Obi hɔ no otumi twa niama, efiri niama, egi loan, e de ye adwuma na waboka. I feel at the end, no person or suicide because of a kind of wabonity. Into yet the solution, they say, ye hear EPR policy, no. Send a bay a beboa Kantamanto, in a bucket and a man, any upcyclers, no, musu to me better on your master, no, edocono, almost so here, upcycle facility. Send a bay or bet me a better yen your master, our Kantamanto. Send a bay a yes, your can also betsy, some better on your manasia, you bet me the atiyaka. I say, you to me in country, so munja near man or modebano. You to me in country because you uncle school, your school call form, and one ye the share ma.
I'm going to translate that. So you don't know what to ask. So Abena is saying Kantamanto have been working at the solutions for a very, very long time. The fact that for a community they're able to recirculate and upcycle over 25 million garments in a month, that means they have the solution and they have been working for working at it for a very long time. But the thing is, they've invested all of their lives into these businesses. Most of them are mothers, most of them are single mothers and widows, and then they work in the market 6 times a week, going as early as 4 a.m. and closing as late as 8 p.m. Most of them not seeing their kids, but seeing them only once a week on Sundays. So with all of this dedication, all of these sacrifices that they're doing, yet the Global North fails to see the effort that happened in Kantamanto. And what she sees as a solution is pushing and making sure that EPR policies passes so that Kantamanto get the support and the recognition that it deserves.
Thank you so much. From Kenya, and this problem is prevalent in Kenya as well. So I'd like to thank you personally for highlighting an issue that is a problem all over Africa and many developing countries. And so my question is, what does partnership look like? Because you mentioned that many designers are not able to practice their trade because of the unfair competition that the waste is creating. So what does partnership look like to you, or what would the ideal partnership between the Global North and our continent would look like?
Thank you very much. So when we talk about partnership between the Global North and the Global South, I don't think we've had a partnership. I don't think it has ever been a partnership. And then I say this because if you are dumping things on someone, it is not partnership. If you're having conversations about a topic that really concerns people on the ground, but yet people on the ground are not involved in the conversation, that is not partnership. So for us, partnership is really prioritizing. If you partner with someone, you're looking at each other's prosperity. So that is partnership. So until I see the Global South and the Global North working together in partnership, that both parts are prospering, that is what is called partnership. But until then, I don't think I really see partnership.
That's a very fair way to say it.
Frank, unfortunately, we're gonna have questions to take with us. We talk to them all the time. I'm gonna sneak one last one in and be really rude. Please. But Sammy mentioned, if we all stop creating clothing, there'll be enough for everyone to have on their backs for the rest of time, effectively. We're here about the millions and millions of garments that are taken care of. You've also addressed that this problem has been going on for a long time. What has been the main obstacle in not getting this legislation passed earlier? What has been the main obstacle so far? Because we're all sitting here going, you're smart people, you probably brought this topic up before. Who has been shutting it down? We can get to the why later. I'm sure all of you are sitting with a piece of garment that has a label in there with either one of your colleagues or friends of friends. We know where this clothing is coming from. That's less important. What I want to know is who's actually stopping this legislation from being implemented, aside from the legal stuff. Because no, but honestly, because there's very smart lawyers, and 5 years, 10 years, how long does it take to write legal text? Right?
There is no simple answer to that very relevant question. There is not, because it's also a way to understand how we globally, culturally are developing. There is an evolution going on where we get more and more people on the planet that lives generally also on a higher living standard. Many goods are getting cheaper and cheaper. And we have allowed that to happen because why take away possibility for people to buy fast fashion if it is available and you can actually do it? We didn't have a concern about the environmental impact. So we have to ask ourselves about the current state of consumerism that is involving all of us. That's one thing. That's fundamentally approach to how we are in the world as human beings and what gives us the sense of life quality and dignity. That's not only related to what I can buy, but also how my surroundings are doing. That's one thing, fundamentally, for all of us. And then it is, of course, if you look in EU, the last 8 years we have only been looking at CO2 emissions. We haven't been looking at environment as something that addresses biodiversity in general. We talked about environment and something that is related to work environment, which is very, very important. I was a trade union representative for the nurses many years ago, and of course that was very, very important. We have talked a lot about air pollution and water pollution, but that was more or less that. And we addressed, and that's also a big part of the explanation, we focused a lot on agriculture and healthy food. We should do that, and we have done the work very well, but by that, and also because of the fashion industry in general not being organized and also being more responsible for the overproduction that they actually do, that they ask us legislators to do the legal frameworks that they need in order for them to have a better impact by the business that they run. So, awareness. And dialogue also in between continents and markets about how are we actually doing? I mean, we can't just address the next generation issues by counting CO2 emissions. There are more to be addressed. And maybe also to address the fact that we cannot, and maybe also we must not all live the life the same way that everybody else does. That if we do that, we actually kill the insumes for innovation and development on this globe, that we can actually co-create and still learn from each other. That's also some kind of basic question we need to address with each other, that why are we having this race against that we all have the same opportunities at the same time? Why not embrace more diversity and also see the values of something that we maybe now see a little bit too much black-white, not black-white in an ethnical way, but like this, there is either the good thing or the bad thing, and there's nothing in between. Come on, we as humans, we can do more than that. We want more than that to really create quality in our life, but also by that, offering our children to learn from us how we were doing in our life to make it possible for them also to have the skills to live a life and also to create a life that brings value in the future. Sorry for preaching.
How could you say things like that when you say inviting people to the table? It takes so much for me to jump through hoops to get a visa, and I have a paper clipped in. Hold on.
I didn't say anything. No.
I have a paper, it's you know, we're human beings. It's a lot of things that we are. So it's not just verbal communication, it is body language as well. So when I'm reacting to your body language, it is because I am trying to survive. So I say that to say that you can't say that it's an invitation to a conversation and conversations have to go between this and that and us and who, and we have to be, when it takes so much for 4 people to come from where we're coming from, to get here with papers clipped into our passports, to say that you have 4 days, come back and report yourself to this embassy on my land, in land that I provided for you to be there. So now, the disparity is gone beyond just conversation. And so when we say this, and the question is asked to you, very straightforward, like who is the
obstacle.
You can say that, okay, I don't know the obstacle at the moment because I'm not privy to that information, and I will take that. But rather to take that and dance with it as a politician and somebody who said you came from a place where you represented labor and people for a long time, to dance with that very question that seems very straightforward and giving a very straightforward answer is quite the opposite of what we're trying to achieve through this dialogue. Sorry.
Thank you. I hate that I have to say this because I actually opened up this kettle of fish, but we are just about to wrap up. And what I want to say, because I'm going to be probably taken off the stage, and we have to go to the other room. What I want to say is I want to thank all of you. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your questions. And thank you so much, Franck, for moderating this. It's so important that the conversation doesn't end here regardless, right? So all of these questions, all of these answers that we're still looking for can be found. There's a lot of extreme competence on this stage. Please take advantage of it. Please keep asking these questions. Thank you for your passion, and thank you for the action that we hope that we can motivate from this discussion. I hope I didn't cut anyone off. I thank you so much. Thank you, Pernille.